Analyze 5 deals. Analyze 5 deals today. And it's really simple. If you're doing long-term rentals, you can go into the Boise REIN page, and I always post the most recent stats on there. You can DM me if you just want. I'll send you a screenshot of the stats or walk you through it. No big deal. Then go on to Zillow or Realtor or check with your real estate agent and just look for 5 properties that are like what you're looking for and compare what it's going to bring in and what it would cost you based on your financing situation. If none of those deals work, I would sit down and look deeper at each one of those and try to come up with a creative way that you could change the terms or the financing. If a deal doesn't work on paper, being creative about finding another way that it can work. So if you're doing that 5 times a day, you're going to start finding opportunities or creating opportunities.
Welcome to the Boise REIN Show, your destination for creating wealth through connections in real estate and business. Are you looking to become a real estate professional? Do you want to start your own successful real estate business? Well, I'm your host, Matt Osojnicki. Join us as we learn from the brightest minds, industry leaders, and experienced professionals, equipping you with the knowledge and confidence needed to make informed decisions and thrive in the ever-changing real estate landscape. Your journey starts now. Welcome back to the Boise REIN Show. Man, I am so excited for today's episode because one of the things Boise REIN was founded on was community and networking. That's how I got my first start, and that's how a lot of people got their start in Boise REIN, and that's where this podcast even came from, is the power of community. And in today's show, we brought a very awesome guest that I would say is the hashtag go-giver of this community. I look up to him, and a lot of other people do. You may already know him. His name is Corby Goade. He is the owner of Boise Turnkey Investments. He has 20 years of experience in investing in this valley. He's an author for BP blogs, and he's just out to help people. And today with our community, we've asked him some questions on our Facebook page of what are some things that you guys are looking for. So today we're going to get your questions answered. So Corby, thanks for being here today. Really appreciate having you on. And, with your go-giver mentality in mind, you will always take somebody out to coffee. You will always sit and talk about real estate. You always sit down and talk about investing and just try to help people out. What is it about that you have found like your strength and passion to be?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. You and I chat all the time just as friends, but it's fun sitting down and talking like this. And I appreciate you guys having me and being on the podcast.
Yes.
So thank you. It's funny. I'm sort of uncomfortable with that phrase, like you saying that I'm a go-giver.
I will always say it.
Well, that's
it's
nice.
true.
To be honest with you, I guess there's 2 reasons that I'm not going to call myself a go-giver, but 2 reasons why I'm willing to just share whatever I know or what I have with anybody. First and foremost, that's what helped me get started. I mean, I didn't really know anybody who was investing in real estate, and I'd rely on the kindness of others. I mean, I got leases from other people. I got advice from friends of friends that were business owners, a handful of people that I did run into that were into rental properties connected me with people that they knew and resources that they had, and I never would have gotten a start without that. One of the first things that I did when I bought my first house was like a fixer-upper that I've house hacked, and I've told you this story a million times, but I started calling contractors just blindly. I didn't know any contractors, and I would just say, hey, can I pay you an hourly fee to come over and do X job? But can I watch you and ask a bunch of questions while you're doing it? And half of them would just say, no, that sounds really annoying. And so I wouldn't hire them. But then there was always somebody that would come over and answer my annoying questions and let me kind of hover over them. And people, just being willing to give like that helped me. And so that's number one, is like, that's how I got my start. And so I want to be able to help other people do the same thing. And the other, honestly, it's completely selfish. I found that when I do that, it comes back to me tenfold. There's a million people in the Boise REIN community that I met for coffee that I've never done a deal with, but they've told their friend about us or a cousin, and we manage properties with them. I've done transactions with those people. And I've just found that giving everything away that I know, selfishly, it helps me financially, and it helps me feel like I'm helping other people way more than going out and trying to hoard information or resources and not share with other people.
Yeah, when you put people in a position of empowerment where they can go out and make an investment for themselves, now they're in a position that they can start working with you.
Yep.
And it's just a win-win.
Mm-hmm.
A rising tide raises all ships.
Yeah.
That's a perfect example.
Totally. I would love to say like it's completely, selfless, and I'm just doing it because I want to give back. And I do enjoy that. It feels good to help people figure things out. But But the fact of the matter is that it helps me out more than it helps them in many, many ways. When I'm helping other people, we're talking about stuff, I'm learning too.
Yeah.
And on top of that, it always comes back in some way. We do business with them or with somebody they know or somebody that they know. Actually, I have an example that's just from this week, as a matter of fact. I have a client that I did a couple deals with as an investor last year. And through his work, there was somebody in his field that was transferring to Boise that he met like at a conference. It wasn't somebody he had a personal relationship. He just met this guy at a conference and he said that he was thinking about moving to Boise. And he was like, oh, you should call my realtor. So that guy called me up. He came to Boise with his family for a weekend. I met him for a day and we went around and toured some houses. I talked to him about investing. And he just said, you know what? I think we're just going to rent a house for a while and try to figure things out. And I was like, okay, great. Nice to meet you. Well, like 4 months later, a friend of his told him he was moving. This is somebody in Louisiana.
Yeah. Other
side of the country. Some other guy that lived near him in Louisiana said, I'm moving to Boise. And he was like, I went to Boise and toured around with this guy and he was fantastic. So that guy called me and I just did a deal with him. So it was like a referral from a referral. And it was just from being willing to go out and talk to people about doing stuff.
You know, I have found in my experience working with you, and by the way, for those that are listening, I got a lot of my start from Corby. So all the things we're talking about, I am a byproduct of Corby's go-giverness. So I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for Corby too. But it's amazing when you just fall in love with the process instead of the outcome. A lot of people are like, oh, I'm going to be real and I'm going to sell 100 homes and make all this money. No, you just walk the walk. You know, you just love the process and helping people out.
Honestly, I think doing real estate deals is just really fun. Yeah. I think it's really fun. And if I make money doing them, cool. But like if I get to be a part of it and like help somebody figure out a way to do it and they do it on their own, that's fun too.
I like it. Well, let's get back to the first thing that you mentioned was annoying questions.
Let's do it.
Because the contractors just hated all the annoying questions you would ask. But that's how you learn, you know, when you find a good one.
Yeah.
All right. So some of our community members, they've had some questions.
Yeah.
And actually, one of the first people, Jonna, our founder, has a couple herself. Some things she would like to know. What areas of Boise is Corby most optimistic about over the next 5 to 10 years?
I saw that question and I've been thinking a little bit about it. As a preface to answering this question, like I'm not one of those people who says like, this is the next hot neighborhood and you should be looking there. There's opportunity everywhere. And I think as most people in this world know that sometimes you just get a great deal and there's a little bit of equity in it. But like there's ways that you can create opportunity through terms or partnerships. And so I tend to not focus on a certain geographic area. I'm looking for an opportunity that might work in different places. But now that I've said that, because I get a lot of, when I go out and meet people for coffee or I have new investors that message me, a lot of them are like, what's the neighborhood I should buy in? And I don't really believe in that, especially like if you've been around this area, there's not a bad neighborhood. The whole area is great. That being said, two areas that I think are solid. One, I think is just kind of like a solid bread and butter area. And the other one, I think that there's a lot of potential in the future. That solid bread and butter area is West Boise. I've probably talked to you about this before, but I love West Boise. There's lots of single family homes, small multifamily homes. Prices are relatively affordable compared to other parts of town. And especially for people who are moving here, you know, a lot of locals think like, well, I want to be close to downtown. I want to be close to Boise State. But people who are moving here from Portland or LA or Seattle or San Francisco, they want to be in the geographic center of the valley. And that's really West Boise and kind of the east side of Meridian. And there's tons of building and infill going in there. And we found that on the property management side, when people are moving here from out of state, those are the ones that go the quickest because they look at a map and like, this is in the middle. I can get downtown in 10, 15 minutes. I can get to Nampa or the Village in 5 or 15 minutes. And that's what those people are looking for. So I think that that's a solid area that's going to continue to grow. There's going to be lots of opportunity. Vacancy is extremely low. It's really easy to rent properties. There's not a lot of like 100-year-old properties out there like there might be in the North End where you're getting into a really heavy rehab or dealing with a historical district, that kind of stuff. So I think that that's a really great bread and butter area for long-term rentals. And there's some pockets that could do well for short-term rentals too. As far as like long-term areas, I mean, this might be obvious. We're a little bit behind the boat, but obviously Garden City is going nuts. But there's a ton of development going on to the east of Veterans Parkway. And it's starting to roll over to the west side of that. But I think there's still a lot of pockets on the west side of Veterans Parkway between like Glenwood and Veterans Parkway along the river there. John asked specifically about the 5 to 10 year. I think in the 5-year range, there's some infill opportunities. I think in occasion it can be hard to make those numbers work because there's people paying $500,000 for half an acre there in some instances because of the way that it's zoned there and the types of properties that Garden City is allowing people to build. That being said, up against the river in that area, there's still a whole lot of industrial and manufacturing and warehouses. I think in that closer to that 10-year mark, we're going to see that going away, and there's going to be residential and mixed use all along the river there. It might not be easy to buy, a 3-acre warehouse there right now, but I think anything that you can get that is within a few blocks of the river, I mean, really I'm talking specifically that area, but really from Shinden to the river and Glenwood to Veterans Parkway, I think that area is going to look very different and be a really cool redevelopment hub probably in that 10-year range.
That's exciting. I like the first example you gave because to me, it just sounds like it has really good margins. The homes aren't too old. They're not too new. You have the opportunity to force appreciation if you want to do some slight rehab and get into property right away, knowing that the rents are going to, someone's going to rent it sooner than later.
Yep.
So good margins. And then the next opportunity, Garden City, with the zoning and being the opportunity to buy larger amounts of acreage for the future. If you're somebody looking to develop or do spec builds or trying to, do more with your career, to have that long-term gain, I agree. Garden City is phenomenal.
Sure.
That's a great area.
Yeah, I agree. And I want to throw out there too that like, there's probably a lot of newbies listening to this. They're like, how am I going to buy 2 acres in a warehouse in Garden City? I also want to throw out there too that like the people who are doing those, a lot of them are going to be syndicating and raising funds to build out these developments. And there'll be opportunities for people to invest in those on a smaller scale. And a lot of times you can get equity at a discount that way. You can get better returns on your money, and it's completely passive too. So
yeah. I want to mention, you were just talking to Rich Jarvis earlier. He said he was going to be on the show. And for those listening, I really am excited to have him on because he's going to talk a lot about syndications and building funds and funds of funds. So if you want to get a little more detail on that, stay tuned for one of our later episodes. Let's get into the next question. How can a finance investor make, buy, and hold in the Treasure Valley work with the rise in interest rates? I'll leave the second question for after.
Okay. It's tough.
It's so tough.
I'm not going to say it's easy. But the first most obvious answer to this is house hacking. House hacking, I'm a firm believer that house hacking is the absolute best way to get started in real estate. And there's some other questions that will probably touch on this a little more. So I won't go into a ton of detail, but when you house hack, you can put less money down, you get a lower interest rate. You can do that with a small multi. You've done that before a couple times.
Yeah.
It's a really great way to get into a property, especially a small multifamily, because if you have more doors, your ROI is going to be better. You're going to have more income coming in. So I think first and foremost, house hacking is always the best bet for you to get your feet wet in real estate investing.
I want to add to that is that a lot of people think that if I am going to house hack a duplex, a triplex, or a quad, that my renters have to pay for my payment, which may have been the case back in 2012 or 13 or 14. But I know from personal experience that I did not get my mortgage paid for house hacking my duplex, but that was okay. With the rise in interest rates, my monthly living expenses were so drastically low from house hacking that I was able to save a significant amount more to buy my next deal.
Well, not just that. If you're going to be paying to live somewhere, in one way or another, you're going to be paying to live somewhere. And if let's say you buy a triplex for $600,000 and your rent where you were living before was $1,500, and now you have a $4,500 mortgage on your triplex, something like that. You have 2 people paying you $1,500, so you've got $3,000 income. You're still paying your same amount, but now you have business write-offs. You get to depreciate part of that property, so you have tax savings. You're getting the appreciation of the market. You have the upside of potentially raising rents the next year and creating more opportunity, and you're getting debt buy down. You don't get that when you're renting. Even if you're breaking even out of pocket month to month, there's so many benefits to doing that.
That was gold. Yes. I have nothing else to say. You nailed it. That was amazing. Can you talk a little about like maybe rate buy downs when you're buying a property or like assuming a VA loan? Do you get into any of those kind of strategies?
Yeah. I think loan assumptions are awesome. If you're house hacking, a loan assumption can be a huge possibility. It can be a huge boon for you. It can be sticky with really specific types of loans, like a VA loan. You have to be a vet. You have to qualify for a VA loan. So assuming a VA loan, if you're a vet, yeah, for sure. I just saw a really great VA loan assumption on the MLS the other day that was like a 2.125% that they were offering up. So, I mean, that's free money right there.
Yeah.
You can buy a property on the market and do that. So there's that. And it gets a little bit trickier with FHA. Conventional loans are pretty easy to assume, although most of those are going to be owner-occupied deals. So generally, if you're doing a loan assumption, it's probably going to be an owner-occupied deal, but then you're house hacking. So you could get a twofer. You're getting a better interest rate that way, and you're eliminating some of your living expenses. Yeah, I think loan assumptions and those options are really great. And we can go down a rabbit hole and talk a little bit about sub 2 also, which it's a possibility. I'm not generally the biggest sub 2 fan because it can get really sticky and they can be complicated. And I personally dealt with sub 2 deals where people's loans have gotten called, and people will tell you that it doesn't happen, but it happens. I've seen it happen personally more than once. But it's a possibility. If it's a way for you to get in the door, then I think it's better to take action than not taking action.
Sure. Yeah. Is there any other strategy some of your clients are using today with these high interest rates? Getting into a home?
You asked about rate buy downs. That's a possibility. It can be really expensive to buy down a rate. A lot of people think it's apples to apples, like that if you pay 1%, you're going to get 1% off your loan. And it doesn't work that way. You get less than 1% if you're paying 1%. And so personally, what I do when I'm buying a property, I do look at buying points, and I'll look at how many years it will take me to pay off that buy down. And if I think I'm going to hold the property for that long or not refinance in that much time, then I'll buy the points. And if not, then I'll let it ride.
Yeah. Very good. Okay. Last question. What size rental homes are in most demand? We already talked about location, but if you could talk maybe about bedrooms, bathrooms, what are renters looking for, coming from an investor standpoint?
Yeah, this is probably like a terrible joke, but I always say that real estate is the second oldest profession. There's like nothing new under the sun. We can talk about these quote unquote new strategies, but people have been doing these things for years. A lot of times the stuff that we think is new, it's just that somebody came up with a really cool way to market an idea. But that being said, the reason I say that is like everybody knows that the 3-bedroom, 2-bath is the most easily rented property, and that's true. In our market, they're the easiest to rent. You get the highest quality tenants. They're vacant for the least amount of time, and the ROI in those is better than almost any other type of property. And so 3-bedroom, 2-bath, single family home is the easiest to rent. And I would say a close second probably is 2-1 or 2-2 in a multifamily. Those are really easy to rent too. You get a different profile of tenants. Generally, it's younger people, roommates, college students. It might be like a young couple who just got married, that sort of thing. And so turnovers are a little higher because a lot of times those people are moving on to different stages of their lives pretty quickly. But those 3-2s, single family homes, they're easy to rent. You'll get a high quality tenant in our market really easily. And in our experience, they stay on average about 3 years.
I love that. And that actually leads into my next question too, because Ashley Smiley wants to know, what type of investment would you choose in the next 6 to 12 months if you were first starting off? Brand new.
So I said earlier that I wasn't going to go too deep into house hacking. I might have already talked too much about it. But if I were starting brand new, and I wish I would have done this. I didn't do this for my first deal, but I wish I would have bought the biggest multifamily I could with, at the time it would have been an FHA loan. Now I would do a conventional loan, and move into that. I would house hack a multifamily and use a conventional loan. And I specifically said a conventional loan because a lot of people want to do an FHA because you can put 3.5% down on a multifamily, and I understand that. But if you can scrape up the other 1.5%, conventional loans up until last year didn't allow you to do this with multifamilies, but now you're allowed with a conventional to put 5% down on a multifamily, and that's a much better deal in my opinion, because with conventional, you're going to have mortgage insurance on either one of those, which can be a pretty big expense. But on a conventional loan, you can drop the mortgage insurance when you get to 20% loan to value. With an FHA, you can't. You have to refinance. And so when you get to that point where you have 20%, if you want to drop your mortgage insurance, you're going to have to spend $8,000 to $12,000 to refinance that loan. And if you amortize that over the time that it took you to get to that 20%, it's probably going to be a lot more expensive.
Yeah, you might as well just come up with the 1.5% more for your down payment.
Yeah, if you can do it, if you can do that extra 1.5%, you're going to save way more money, I think, with a conventional in the long run.
Yeah, I wish they had this when we were doing this. I remember I think I paid 25% down on one of my duplexes.
Yeah.
You know, it hurts. I got a lot of equity in the property.
Yep.
But I could have bought maybe a deal or two or more. Yeah. No, that's really good, I think. And how many units can you buy conventionally using that 5%? Is there a max amount of units? Can I buy a 100-unit property?
No, you can't.
Okay.
So with a conventional loan, you can buy 4 units or fewer.
Okay.
So once you get to 5 units or more, it's considered commercial property, and that's a whole different ballgame. But you can buy, with a conventional FHA, any of those loans, you can buy 4 units or fewer. VA too.
Yeah, love it. Ashley does have one more question.
Okay.
And by the way, Ashley, thank you so much for the questions. These are awesome, fantastic, and I appreciate the involvement. So what are your thoughts on the Airbnb market in the Treasure Valley and McCall? Well,
we are very lucky to have an Airbnb expert in the room that can tell me if I'm on track or not. I'm not an expert on McCall by any stretch of the imagination, so I won't really even comment on that. I've looked a little bit, and I've talked with you, Matt, about maybe Garden Valley, and the numbers are pretty tough to make work, even in Garden Valley, and from what I've seen in property values are probably half in Garden Valley, 2/3 to half what they are in McCall. I would imagine it'd be pretty tough to make an Airbnb work in McCall unless you had a very unique property that you could get a really high nightly rate for. In the Treasure Valley, I have a couple, and Matt and his wife partner with us on those, and they manage those. And so I have a little bit of experience. I don't do any of the day-to-day stuff. I'm lucky to have a really great property manager that does all that stuff for me. But what I would say is one of our properties does really, really well.
Top 25 in the Valley.
Is it really?
Yep.
Oh, all right. I didn't know that. That makes me feel pretty good. But that's because it's a unique property. It has some unique things about it. And we've gone out of our way to put some cool stuff in there. Not anything crazy. Like I have a full-size video game console in there, and like a foosball machine, foosball table, foosball machine. And we have a hot tub over there. And Matt tells me that properties with hot tubs usually net about 20% more.
15% more annually gross.
Yeah, there you go. Okay. So that helps a lot. And I will say that we have a couple other Airbnbs that are more kind of just standard properties, and they don't do that great. Some months they make some money, and some months we lose a little bit of money. But it's interesting to see that, and they do at least as well as they would as long-term rentals. And so it's fine with me to see that, and it gives us some flexibility too. Yeah. That we have family coming to town, we can put them up there or something like that.
Yeah.
But that being said, as far as if I were considering buying an Airbnb in Ada County, or I wouldn't even really speak to Canyon County, but if I were buying one, there would only be 2 ways I would do that. One, if it were a very, very unique property that I could make stand out, and that could be in a lot of different ways. Like it could be just in design style. I might be a very creative person that could go in and make it a very unique property that would photograph really well and stand out on listings. So maybe I would try that. If it were in a very, very good location, and I knew that was going to keep my occupancy or my nightly rate up, or if it was a luxury property and I could withstand the ebbs and flows of what that would look like. So if I were looking at buying one, it'd be one of those 3 things. But the other thing is, and I have a lot of clients that do this, if you're a really high wage earner and you need real estate professional status so that you can depreciate a property against your W-2 income, that's a great way to do it.
Yeah, manage it yourself.
And to be frank with you, if you're making a couple $100,000 at a W-2 job, it doesn't really matter how well your Airbnb performs. If it makes money, that's great. But if it loses money month to month, the tax savings to you are going to be significantly more than you can imagine.
I just thought of a little strategy that I can't believe I never thought about before, and you just made me think of it.
What's that?
If you are a high income earner and you purchase a property as an Airbnb so you can purchase furniture and depreciate the furnishings and the home and get the professional status, why not just hire a co-host? Since you own the listing, hire the co-host to do all the talking to the guest day to day, but you are still you own the listing. You are still the property manager of that property.
Yep.
But you literally just hired somebody to do most of the work for you.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I have some clients that you've talked to before that are doing something like that right now. They live out of state. They're buying a short-term rental here that eventually they'll probably move into, but they come visit their kids all the time. They wanted a place to land. They didn't want to end up buying a property in Boise in 5 years when they're twice as much as they are now. And so they're having their kids co-host for them here and take care of some of the just basic day-to-day stuff. And they'll get the opportunity to fully depreciate that property against their W-2 income.
Yeah, I love that. And I know you talked about some properties may do good, they may not do good, but you wouldn't have had that insight or that knowledge had you not taken action and done those for yourself.
Yeah, that's true. But I never would have, I shouldn't say never, but I don't think I would have done Airbnbs anyway if it weren't for you kind of nudging me along anyway.
Yeah.
But I'm glad that I did because I've learned so much about them, and now I can speak to it a little bit with clients. And when I get into a spot where I feel like I'm out of my lane, then I can connect them with you, and it's good.
All right, a little bit of my take to answer your question, Ashley, about McCall specifically. I don't have any investment properties. I do not manage in McCall. I've spoken to other property managers in there, and it is a logistical nightmare, to get cleaners in there and to get things fixed. Although you can get it done, it's just going to cost you more. At the same time, the regulations in McCall are some of the worst in the state. They were at a max of 12. Now they're at the max of 10 occupants, and you have to apply to the fire department in order to increase the occupancy of your home. And if you were a person who bought a really expensive home that could house 16 people, that just killed your business. So they're very anti-growth in McCall from what I've seen, even on the development side. So we don't personally invest in McCall. We don't manage in McCall for those reasons. It's just, it makes more sense to do it here. The margins are better. You have your boots on the ground. You have the logistics. You have the teams. And that more than makes up for any potential income you could have in McCall. As far as you were talking about Garden Valley, Garden Valley is a great place to have short-term rentals if you're looking to buy a family cabin that you want to go up to for Christmas and spend time with in the summer and take some toys up and just rent it on the side just to earn some income. So for those reasons, places like Garden Valley are great. When it comes to Boise, we always stick to, or I should say the Treasure Valley, Ada, Canyon County, we always stick to Boise. I tell a lot of people this, last I checked, Boise was bringing $44 million a year for short-term rentals annually. So Meridian was the next up at $7 million. So if you're looking at where the money's going, I'm going to the money. That's in Boise. So
interesting.
That's just a little bit of my take on it.
I didn't know anything about the occupancy limits in McCall. Do you know, does the city actively look at listings and do they find people? Do you know anything about that?
I was on one of the calls and the gal that was running it was very adamant about not having these properties have more than 10 people in it and just being really strict on rules. They just wanted to regulate everything.
Interesting.
Yeah.
All right.
So for that reason, I just stay away because it's not worth the time.
Yeah.
We'll wait till somebody with a lot of money comes in and changes things.
This show would not be possible without the support from our local community. Because of you, we're able to share information from leading professionals like never before. That's why our sponsors at Boise Turnkey Investments and Your Stay B&B have teamed up with the Boise REIN Show. Whether you're just starting out or you're a seasoned pro, they help bring you all the insider information to get you started on your journey today. Back to the show.
Okay. Next question. This one comes from another pro member, Kylie Osojnicki. You might know her.
I've heard that name before.
Yes, it's a very unique last name. Why did you choose real estate over buying a business or investing in stocks, money market accounts, or retirement 401k?
I don't know anything about any of those other things. Honestly, until I started doing real estate, I didn't know anything about running a business either. And I'm still learning about running a business every single day. So the idea of buying a business was completely foreign to me. That idea had never even crossed my mind. And then when it comes to stocks, 401k, when I had W-2 jobs, I was contributing to a 401k just like anybody else would,
and your employer matched you, right?
Yeah.
You got that extra, get
the 4% or
4%, right?
Yeah.
Put in 4, so they put in 4.
Yeah. So I did all that stuff, but it wasn't an investment strategy. It just was like, oh, well, they're going to give me free money, so I'll do that. The reason I got in, I would say I didn't choose the real estate life. The real estate life chose me. Right?
Yeah.
I landed in it.
Yeah.
I've told you the story a million times before, but I bought my first house basically to compete with my wife because she had a really nice house and I was living in a duplex with my buddies. And so I bought this fixer-upper and kind of cleaned it up over the course of a year, and I made more money in equity in that year than I made at my job, and it was fun. And so that it just clicked for me, and I just dove further into real estate. And to me, it's something that anybody can do. I know there's a lot of people listening to this podcast, or they're in the Boise REIN group or whatever, that are like, how do I do that? How do I get to that point? Or how do I do that thing that this person is doing? And the answer is really simple. You just start doing it. That's it. It's probably infuriating to hear that answer, but that's truly all there is to it.
Real estate isn't hard. It's just hard work. Work the weekends, paint some walls.
And it can be scary too. But
yeah,
I always use the example too that if you've never done a deal before and you're excited about real estate, I could come drop the best deal in town right now in your lap and say, here you go. And it's still going to be scary. Even if it was a guarantee, you're going to be scared, and you're going to want to know what your dad thinks, and you're going to call your cousin who's a contractor and ask him about it. And even if it's a guarantee, it's going to be scary anyway. You just have to jump in and do it.
Yep. Forbes magazine ran a statistic of a couple years back, and they have found that real estate has made more millionaires than any other industry that exists that we have.
Yeah, I believe it.
So if you want a reason to start, your odds are pretty good that you're going to become a millionaire by getting started in real estate. Mm-hmm. You may not know what avenue you're going to do. You may do short-term rental. Mm-hmm. I found short-term rental because it accidentally made more cash than long-term rental. Just like you accidentally found that your properties made more money than your annual salary.
Yeah. Honestly, there's a lot of people in this town that are millionaires that aren't even real estate investors that just bought a house.
Right.
You don't even have to be a real estate investor. I mean, there's a lot of people here that bought a house in the North End in 1992 because they liked that area, and they're multimillionaires now.
Yep. Yeah. Great answer. All right, next one. How long do you hold a non-cash flowing property before you decide to pivot strategies or sell?
Well, I like this question a lot. Was this one of Kylie's questions?
Kylie's question.
That's a really good question.
Thank you, Kylie.
Yes, thank you, Kylie. I've thought about this one quite a bit, and there's not a cut and dry answer. I think it's relative to where you are in life and what the property looks like. There's a concept in real estate, if you've been in it for very long, that talks about the highest and best use of a property. And so if you can withstand negative cash flow to get a property to the point where it will perform in the way that it should, then that could be years. I mean, like, I'm not in a place to do this, but I know people who have bought properties. I shouldn't say I know people, but I've heard of people that have bought properties that sit on them for 15 years waiting for zoning changes or for an adjacent property to become available so that they could do a big project that they wanted to and create a highest and best use for a property. But you have to be able to withstand the negative cash flow in order to do that. And, you know, it's funny if you go in Bigger Pockets or even in the Boise REIN group, sometimes there's posts that people say like, who are these crazy people buying these negative cash flow properties? But the fact of the matter is that it's not like people aren't investing in real estate in New York City or in San Francisco and nothing their cash flows is because those people can withstand the short term because the long-term gains are so much better. To specifically answer that question for Kylie, I bought a couple properties last year that are cash flow negative by a couple $100 a month, but I think I bought them pretty well. One of them, I guess I'll be specific. I don't usually talk specifics, but I bought one for $450, and it's rented as a long-term rental. Actually, you walked through it with me. We're talking about maybe doing it as a short-term rental.
The one in Eagle?
Yeah. So we ended up just doing it as a long-term rental, and my interest rate on it is, I think, like 8.5 or something like that, and it doesn't cash flow. I think we're cash flow negative $200 or $300 a month on it. But I bought it a good time. I got a good deal on it in the first place, and I probably could sell that property now for $650,000, and that was 18 months ago. And so it was been cash flow negative. Let's say $300 a month. That's $3,600 a year for 2 years. So I've put out $7,200 out of my pocket month to month, but I've probably gained $140,000. I didn't do that math right. I mean, something in the range of $150,000 to $200,000 in equity in exchange for that $7,200. So if you're living paycheck to paycheck, that $300 a month is probably not going to work for you. But if you can withstand it, then sometimes those equity gains are worth it. And so now I could go borrow against that equity and buy another property without any cash out of my pocket.
So be specific and try to stay on track with your goals. Why you're buying the property, what are you using it for?
Yeah, but I mean, also, if you're just getting started and your goal is to quit your job and create cash flow, you're not going to do a deal like that.
Right.
And I totally understand that. But the goal is to get to a point where you can do a deal and that's small potatoes. I mean, there's people that do that with like I was talking about, buying a vacant lot in New York City or something like that, and they're going to spend tens of billions of dollars building a skyscraper. Sure. So, I mean, what I was talking about for myself is small potatoes, but if you're trying to build cash flow so you can quit your job, you're not going to do a deal like that. So I think early on, it's really important that you're looking for something that's going to net you more. And going back to house hacking, those deals will net you more, even though maybe you're not buying a place that's going to be cash flow positive, but maybe it's saving you on rent. Maybe you're going from paying $2,000 in rent to paying $1,700 out of your pocket, and somebody else is covering the rest of your mortgage. And so finding that net where you're at, what's going to be comfortable for you. And then as you grow and you learn more and you build a cushion for yourself, you can start looking at opportunities where there may be bigger equity upsides in exchange for a negative cash flow for a period of time.
Okay. Since we're on the subject of trying to find properties and running numbers on them, I have some questions myself. How do you run numbers on your deals when buying a property? Because I know your method is a little more cut and dry than most.
Oh, I think you're being kind. I don't have a method. That's why, that's why you're saying that. I'm the wrong person to ask that question because, as you know, like I have an idea of how a property is going to perform just because I've done it a few times and I have a property management company. And so I've seen it over and over again. If I look at a listing, I know how much it's going to rent for.
How do you know how much it's going to rent for?
Because we rent a bunch of properties and I have the NARPM stats that I use. I post them in the Boise REIN group every time they come out. So I always share the averages in the Valley for different types of properties in Canyon and Ada County and how much the average rent is for. And it's rare that you're going to see something that's more than 10% better than that or worse than 10% less. And so if you've got a really cool property that's in a great area and it's all fixed up, you can probably charge 10% higher than those averages. If you got a property that needs a little bit of love, maybe not in the best area, you probably are going to end up 10% less. So that's how I figure out how much it's going to rent for. I know that a 2-bedroom, 1-bath place in Ada County is going to rent for somewhere between $1,400 and $1,600 80% of the time. And then honestly, I go onto bankrate.com and I say, well, if I could get this at 8% and I'm going to put this much down, what's my payment going to be like? And if there's enough of a difference in there that I'm comfortable, then I take a run at it. It's pretty simple.
Pretty simple.
I could make it way more complicated if I wanted to. I've had people send me people always ask me can I use your spreadsheet? And I embarrass myself and say, I don't have a spreadsheet. But I've had clients of mine and other investors that have sent me spreadsheets that they use. And I can tell you that in most cases, people who really dive into numbers, I'm not saying you shouldn't analyze deals or underwrite your deals. Don't use me an example because I'm not the best example. But when you really start getting into the nitty gritty of every little detail of how a property is going to perform, that's going to create a lot more fear in you than optimism. Even if a property looks like it's going to perform, those details will overwhelm you.
They will, 100%. And that's exactly where analysis paralysis comes from. You may not have even done the Eagle deal that you talked about if you were running it on a spreadsheet. Who knows?
I highly doubt
8% interest rate? No thanks. Yeah. Okay, so it sounds like you're more of like a market play kind of guy. You're not really buying a deal in the moment because it looks like it cash flows on paper today. You're more of like, where's the market at? Where's it going? And in your opinion, with those market ebbs and flows, how do you ensure that you're buying for that long-term growth? Like how can you ensure that, okay, this Eagle deal that I'm getting, I know I'm playing for that long-term growth?
Well, I don't. I just have a lot of faith in this market. And I don't think that it takes a genius or a financial expert to see that people are moving here and they're going to keep moving here for a reason. And there's a shortage of housing and it's pretty simple.
I want to get into that. So some of the reasons that you have faith in this, you said people are moving here, shortage of housing. What are some of those other things that give you that warm and fuzzy that Boise is in a growth state?
Well, people are moving here for a very good reason. And I mean, if you've traveled around the United States, anywhere else, it's pretty obvious that any city this size, anywhere else in the country, it's dirtier. Boise is incredibly clean. It's incredibly safe. It still has like a really nice family feel. You walk down the street and people smile and nod and say hello. Like that doesn't happen in other cities. And even go to Spokane. If anybody doubts what I'm saying, Spokane has the same population as Boise. Go to Spokane for a weekend and walk around downtown and tell me which place you'd rather invest. And that's the same thing that people are moving here. I mean, people are moving here because they're coming from towns where they can't go out with their kids at night. They can't send their kids to the park. They have to make sure that all of their belongings are out of their car at night because people are breaking into their cars, and then they come here and you don't have to worry about any of that stuff.
Yeah.
The quality of life here is ridiculous. And yeah, it's getting more expensive. And I understand why that is difficult and it's not great for a lot of people, but I don't fault anybody for moving here. Boise is an awesome place. And even though hundreds of thousands of people have moved here over the last 15 or 20 years, it's still a really cool place. Honestly, that's why I have faith in this market. Like there are a lot of huge builders here that are building as fast as they can, and they can't keep up with the number of people that are moving here. And that's why real estate is so expensive. There's not some crazy analysis to do on it. There's not some conspiracy. There's not enough housing and people want to be here.
Yeah.
And
I think Boise has the tallest building in Idaho. I forget which building it is, and people are going to crush me for it.
Yeah. Let's insult Matt.
Yeah, that's the big building. But now they've got a new development like right down the road from there. It's like 33 units they're building tall. It's going to be the next tallest building.
Mm-hmm.
On top of that, we have these big corporations coming. Micron is building the biggest chip manufacturing plant in the United States.
Yep.
Right here in Boise.
Mm-hmm.
Meta's moving here.
Yep.
They're bringing a facility here. Tesla's already here, and they're looking to expand. So other people see it. Big money sees it.
Yeah.
Sees Boise as a bigger hub in the future.
Oh, for sure. And I mean, there's a great base of workers here, and like Micron, they're bringing people from all over the world to work there.
Yeah. Have you seen it down there? The cranes are huge.
I haven't been over that.
They've already started. It's awesome. Okay. We talked about market. Another thing I want to talk about is actually, let's get to some easier questions first. We talked about like having a simple process to buying your first rental property.
Yeah.
For those beginning, for you, you're very cut and dry, like just take action and do it. What would be your 3-step process to just getting your first property under your belt?
I would make it pretty simple. I would talk to other people who are doing what you want to do. And the really easy way to do that is go to one of the Boise REIN meetups. Molly has a meetup she does.
Oh yeah, they're great.
On Wednesday night, once a month. I don't remember which one. Do you remember off the top of your head? Well, we'll maybe put like some text on the screen right here or something.
Yeah.
But she does one at Cafe Olay, and it's just like a casual drop-in networking thing. And she always has like some sort of activity for everybody, and it's awesome. So I would go to a meetup, and not only that, there's a bunch of other Boise REIN meetups. There's a bunch of other wholesaling meetups. I would just connect with other people who are doing what you want to do, and that's a super simple thing. And the other, you said 3, so that's 1. 2, I would just find a real estate agent that you're comfortable with that has done some business. I wouldn't necessarily recommend working with like your mom's hairdresser's kid who just got their license. A lot of people think real estate agents are interchangeable, and I understand why, but there's a reason why the attrition rate in the industry is 90% over 2 years. It's not easy to go out and do deals and negotiate deals and make things happen. And so it takes somebody with some experience that can get in and really negotiate for you. So I would find a good real estate agent. There's a lot of good ones in the Boise REIN group, but there's great real estate agents all over the place too. But just, I would talk with your agent about what their production looks like and if they're doing deals like what you're looking for. And lastly, I would connect with a couple local lenders. A lot of new investors are shopping around for the absolute lowest rate they can get. Most of the time that's a mistake, especially if it's a lender that is online and you can't go sit down and talk to them. I almost just had a client lose like $50,000 in earnest money because they were using a lender in Florida that just decided not to return phone calls and emails, and they didn't order an appraisal, and we couldn't get any information from them at all. And it was very, very, very close to the deal falling apart and them losing a bunch of money. And it was just, they chose this lender because they were a quarter lower than anybody else.
It's a good thing they had a good real estate agent like you to remedy the situation.
Well, I'll shout out to Tracy, who works on our team, but she's like a bulldog. So, I mean, I was making calls, but when I'm out showing houses or talking to other clients, like she was all over this lender, like calling them, emailing them nonstop, like trying to get up the chain. And she's the one that really got the wheels going. But yeah, I mean, you have to have a team working on your side and everybody has to work together. And I've seen lots of people lose out on opportunities and lose earnest money because they wanted somebody with the lowest rate and they went with some online lender that those guys get paid commissions. And if you're doing a $300,000 deal and taking a bunch of their time and they have an opportunity to work somebody buying $1 million house, they don't care if your deal closes. They're going to stop calling you back and they're going to work the $1 million deal.
Yeah, I completely agree. Like trying to save cents on the dollar to get a better lender, and you're never going to work those lenders again. Like you're going to give those lenders a bad taste in their mouth that you're not a good client.
Yep.
You know, just because you tried to save $100 over the next guy, and then you're trying to use one lender's quote against another lender's quote, and then use their quote back against the other lender's quote. You're just asking for trouble.
Yeah, and I understand. Like it's important to watch the bottom line and make sure you're getting the best deal that you can, but it's more important to have a team that supports you and trusts you. It's funny, a lot of people who are new to this think my realtor works for me, this lender, they work for me. And I mean, that's true to a certain extent, but you also have to keep in mind that everybody's working together towards the same goal. And if they're hustling for you, they should be compensated for that.
Yeah.
Whatever that looks like. And especially on the lender side, I think it's really important to have a good relationship with a lender, because when you have a deal that you need to move on quickly, or there's some weird angle, having somebody who's going to pick up the phone and help you is way more important than having saved 1/8 of a point on a deal 2 years ago with a stranger.
Glad we're talking about this. We're talking about the lending side. I want to talk about the realtor side with these new regulations that may be coming down the pipeline for realtors, as far as the way the practice has been and how it is going to go with the 6% commissions for sellers now not representing the buyers. Can you speak a little bit about how you think this is going to play out for new investors when they're looking to invest? Should they be getting a buyer's agent? Should they be shopping around? Just give me your thoughts.
Oh,
and this hasn't gone through yet.
No,
but
it probably will.
It probably will.
Yeah.
And what can new investors be looking out for when they're trying to find a good realtor?
Well, I mean, a lot of new investors, they're told that they don't need a real estate agent. They can represent themselves. And it's not impossible to do that. But so I wanted to throw that out there because I kind of want this to sound like a sales pitch for me or for working with a realtor necessarily. But a lot of realtors that I know that are doing a huge volume of deals, a lot of their deals that they do are not on the MLS anyway. People think a realtor is just there to do MLS deals for you, but realtors are in the real estate industry. And especially if they're investor-friendly realtors, they know a lot of investors that are doing all kinds of deals that are off the market. And so I've done a lot of deals with my clients that were properties that no one else ever would have seen. And in those situations, sometimes my client they'll pay me a commission as a buyer's rep. And traditionally the seller pays a commission to the buyer's rep. And that's kind of where you're getting at is, I'm sure a lot of people have heard, but there's a lawsuit that sounds like it's going to go through. And the gist of it is really that listing agents I'm speaking broadly, but like the impression is that listing agents have told sellers that they have to pay a commission to a buyer's agent, that if you want to do a deal, you have to. The fact of the matter is that commissions have always been negotiable. A listing agent or somebody selling a house could work with a real estate agent and they don't have to pay anyone anything. They could pay their listing agent $1 and the buyer's agent nothing. They could pay the listing agent nothing, I guess, as far as that goes. So, but the impression was that they had to pay a commission to the buyer's agent. That's never been the case, but people feel like that agents have falsely represented that was a requirement when it's not. Something that's interesting to note is that Idaho is one of the only states that has buyer's representation formalized and has for years. In most other states, a buyer's agent goes out and shows properties to someone who they don't represent in hopes that the seller is going to pay them. And for those of you who work with real estate agents as a buyer, I don't know if you've read your rep agreements carefully, but it says in there that if the seller doesn't pay a commission or the seller doesn't pay X amount, that you're responsible for making up the difference as a buyer. It's pretty rare in my experience that our clients pay us commission. Sometimes they do. And I think that's probably going to start happening more. But I honestly think that it's not going to change the net to a buyer or a seller a whole lot. I think that it's going to probably become customized, that that it's made more obvious to listing agents that they should offer some sort of compensation to a buyer, which most of them already do, and that buyer's going to bring that buyer's agent is going to bring them a buyer. I think it's going to be. I personally think it's still going to be pretty rare that a buyer is going to end up paying a commission. It's in a seller's best interest to offer a commission so that people representing buyers will bring them by. Yeah.
Do you think, as somebody, let's say I'm selling my home and I go to a real estate agent to sell it, and I tell them, hey, I don't want to pay the buyer's fee. Do you think that's a good decision of mine? Like, hey, I'll make sure you get paid, but I don't want to pay any buyer's commissions. Like, let's keep it at 3%. Do you see anything like that happening? Is that going to affect the sale of my particular home in this scenario?
Yeah, I think that it will. This is totally an unethical practice, but the fact of the matter is that if a real estate agent has a client that wants to look at 8 houses, and 4 of them are offering a 2% commission, 3 of them are offering a 3% commission, and one's offering 0, do you think that they're going to take their client? They're going to be pushing that one that's offering 0. They're going to do everything in their power to push their client to these other listings, and to the point that they'll probably try to not even show that listing. They shouldn't. It's an ethical violation to do that. In that situation, that agent should say, hey, if you want to see that house, that's cool, but they're not offering any compensation. So I want to go back to our buyer's agent agreement, and here's what it says. So if we do this deal, I'll help you out, but know that you're going to be paying me out of pocket for that. That's the way it should work.
You read my mind, because that was leading my second question. As a buyer then, and you're an agent, you see this, that they're offering $1 to the buyer's agent. How do you have that conversation with your client? And you just answer that question.
Well, and I think if you're not a really good real estate agent, if you're just one of the agents who's out there filling in the blanks on a contract, that's a pretty hard sell, right?
Yeah.
But if you're adding value to your client and you're educating them and helping them, I don't think it's that big of a deal. And to be honest, that there's ways that you can roll that into your loan, and it's already accounted for in property values all over the valley. Technically, that 3% commission, it's part of the value of a property. And so when an appraiser goes out and appraises a property, it's included in that. And so when you go to take a loan out on the property and the appraiser comes out, they're taking that commission into account and adding it in. And so there are ways that a buyer's commission can just be rolled into the loan anyway. So it's not necessarily something that has to come out of pocket in cash. Yeah,
I didn't know that. I know you specifically, you have ways of writing those into the deals as well, as far as terms go too.
Sure.
So
yep.
Having a good agent representing you will pay for itself.
Well, and in Idaho, in an offer or any addendums related to an offer, you can't put terms around commissions in there, but you can put credits in there that can be paid as commissions and just negotiate it in a different way.
See, we're learning.
There you go.
I love it. I love it. I have one more question. It was about do you think that this new, I'll call it law, however you want to put it, will affect the prices of homes? Do you think the prices will go up, down? Do you think they'll stay the same? Do you think it'll, the more expensive homes will do better or worse? Or how do you see it affecting home prices?
I don't think it's going to affect home prices at all.
Okay.
Like I said, appraisers they appraise values based on sale prices, which include commissions already. I don't think appraisers are going to, if this goes through, and I think November is when, like, supposedly if it gets voted through, it'll be November. I don't think appraisers are going to suddenly go out in November and start appraising houses for 3% less because of this law that went through.
You don't think that a seller's agent will take advantage of buyers who aren't represented?
I think that there will be some that try to do that. I think that that's certainly a possibility, but we could talk all day long about like dual agency and it's a lose-lose scenario. The only person who wins in that situation is the real estate agent.
Yeah, fair enough.
If you have a real estate agent, with a few exceptions, that's pushing dual agency or I can represent both sides, they're going to make a bunch of money, and you're not going to have anybody looking out for your best interests.
Well, I'd love to have you back on the show, a year from now after it comes out, and get your take on it after it's already put into effect.
Yeah, I'll come
if it happens.
I'll come anytime.
Hi, I'm Jonna Weber, the founder of the Boise Real Estate Investor Network. Thanks for being a listener of our Boise REIN Show, where our incredible pro members share their personal stories and areas of expertise with our listeners. If you're enjoying our show, you are going to love our Boise REIN community. Our mission is to inspire, connect, and equip you to create wealth and freedom for yourself and your family. We invite you to join us as a member at Boise REIN today at boiserein.com.
Corby, thanks for coming on today.
Yeah,
this has been
been a blast.
amazing. You've answered so many questions, and we appreciate the feedback we've had from the community. We love doing this type of show because we get your questions answered, which are the most important, and everybody's involved. So thanks again for coming. Thanks everybody for listening. If you're still here, if you like this, give us a thumbs up and let us know that you did. If you want to hear more, don't forget to subscribe. We'd love to have you in part of this community. Check out Boise REIN. And give Corby a call. He'd love to have coffee.
Yeah, it's on my treat.
There you go. See? Before we get out of here, though, what's one actionable item step our listeners could take today that will get them closer to their goals tomorrow?
Let me see. We talked about this earlier, and now I'm drawing a blank on what my answer was because I gave an answer last time. Oh, yes, I remember. Analyze 5 deals. Analyze 5 deals today. And it's really simple. If you're doing long-term rentals, you can go into the Boise REIN page, and I always post the most recent stats on there. You can DM me if you just want. I'll send you a screenshot of the stats or walk you through it. No big deal. Then go on to Zillow or Realtor or check with your real estate agent and just look for 5 properties that are like what you're looking for and compare what it's going to bring in and what it would cost you based on your financing situation. And if none of those deals work, I would sit down and look deeper at each one of those and try to come up with a creative way that you could change the terms or the financing or the pricing on that deal to maybe make it work, and start getting those gears turning in your brain about, if a deal doesn't work on paper, being creative about finding another way that it can work. So if you're doing that 5 times a day, you're going to start finding opportunities or creating opportunities.
And you're going to have a better pulse on the market.
Oh, for sure.
And if people are asking you what's doing well in the market, like earlier you were saying, you see West Boise doing well and you see Garden City potentially doing well in the future. You wouldn't know that if you didn't have a pulse on the market and you did this every day.
Yeah.
So you're creating value not only for yourself, but others around you who, if you come to a networking event, you're able to answer some of these questions because you've done the work, you've done the research, and it doesn't cost you any money.
Nope. No, and it's fun.
And it is fun.
Yeah.
I love running deals.
Yep.
Corby, thanks again for coming on today. If people want to reach out to you, BoiseTurnkey.com.
Yeah, BoiseTurnkey.com, Corby at Boise Turnkey. Yeah, I'm always happy to chat real estate with anybody.
I love that. And we'll leave your contacts in the show notes as well. So thanks for coming on. And for those listening, again, grab coffee with this guy. He's awesome.
Thanks for having me, Matt. I appreciate it.
All right. We'll see you guys next time.